Welcome to the Global Prayer Network with Reverend Dr. Seth O'Lardy. We pray this teaching will impact your life and bring you closer in your walk with Jesus. Let's get ready to receive today's teaching from Reverend Dr. Seth O'Lardy.
Thank you very much, Bishop Larte. I want to thank you first for allowing me the opportunity to present today and to tell my story. I know there are many stories, but I thank you for this opportunity. I'm thankful to God for this opportunity to share this, my travels to Africa and how it has changed my way of thinking. And I hope my way of moving and doing things in the future. I'm so grateful, so blessed by God. So I want to share today a presentation of the transformative power of traveling to Africa and how it's changed my life. I'd like to begin by sharing my screen. If that is something, Bishop, that I can do now, I would like to go ahead and share.
Yes, you can. Precious, let's make sure she's able to share the screen.
Okay, and let's see. And I'm all the way, of course, I'm at the back, and let me just get to the front. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, then let's,
While you're working on that, tell us where you're from and who you are and all that good stuff.
I am from, is my screen up now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great. Okay, so thank you. Yes, I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I had the opportunity, of course, to travel to Ghana, West Africa. And I'm just going to move this to the side a little bit. For those in the States, of course, just for information, or those from out of the state, travel to Delaware, Delaware in the U.S., United States, and then to Washington, to then travel to Egypt, and then to Accra, Africa. So let me begin. So the transformative power of visiting Africa. And so I'm just going to move right in, and my slides are a little bit wordy, so I'm just saying I'm traveling to Africa, but I'll explain as I go along. So as I said, I had the opportunity to travel to Africa, and I traveled with my sister. She had invited me to go. So I had this opportunity, and I went with the Helping Hands missions group under the leadership of Pastor Vincent Hines from the Crossroads Fellowship Church in Delaware. And they have partnered with another group, Zero Missions in Africa, under founder and Pastor John Izahaku. And Pastor John was our host through the whole time that we had stayed in Africa. And he was a great host. So my sister had invited me, as I said, and from her church in Delaware. So I traveled up with them. My sister, Cicely Turpin, and I mentioned her name because she was very instrumental, of course, in me traveling to Africa and my time and experience there. We traveled with a team of 11 in that group from the church, and they were pastors and doctors of different medical professions, therapists, nurses, dental hygienists, educators, and of course, me. And God knows all of our strengths, and I'm thankful for it. The team was to provide many medical clinics to villages and Bible education to the local villages. And on the screen here, you see my sister, and that's me. There you can see that. So I'll move on. So we traveled, as I said, to West Africa, but we went by the way of Accra. We traveled, as I said, to Egypt, or a connecting flight from the US to Egypt and then to Accra. And we traveled in the first week of August 2023. And again, our primary destination was Tamale, which is in the northern region of Ghana, West Africa. And of course, as I said before, our host, Pastor John, had accompanied us. He met us in Accra at the airport, and we traveled then to the Catholic Archdiocese guest house in Tamale. And that was, again, through plane, another plane trip, and a bus ride. The plan was to stay 9 days, and we planned to stay a couple of days in Tamale for the mini clinics, the mini medical clinics, and to visit to the village of Baglia to commission a borehole. And some of the pronunciations of the villages, I may be off a little bit. Forgive me, that's my American way. So we had also traveled to Nasaka and stayed for a few days, and then we were going to travel to the village of Bandawiwa and Bandago. And even though there's a G there, they kept telling me it's Bandago, to perform the medical outreach and Bible studies. By the 6th day, we had completed our medical clinics and Bible study and traveled back to Accra, so that we can experience other parts of the Ghana culture. And we visited Cape Coast and Elmina Castle and Kukama National Park and the Cultural Center. This is just to give an idea of where we traveled through Ghana. And of course, you see to our right on the star, we traveled to this region. We were up in this area here. So what was my experience traveling to Ghana, West Africa? That's what I'm going to talk about next. So again, the opportunity came to travel to Africa. And I must say in our travels that God was with us through the whole time that we traveled. You can really feel his presence in everything that we experienced. Again, we traveled from the US to Egypt with our connecting flight to Accra in Ghana, West Africa. Just to paint a picture, I wanted to say that we were a group of 11. We each had 2 large pieces of luggage that we could check, plus carry on, and then a personal bag. So for the 11 of us, you figure we had 22 bags that we can check. And I'm going somewhere with this. So these bags that were checked had needed medical supplies for the clinics. We were going to have items for the Bible study and some other things, and personal items like clothing and things like that. This is all packed in our goods. But when we arrived in Accra, 13 pieces of our luggage did not come with us. They were missing. They had not made the flight. So after much talk at the airport, they told us that the baggage would be sent to us the next day. But indeed, the baggage was not. It was sent on the 6th day, actually, when we returned back to Accra. So, and I'm talking about that because I'm talking about the way God moves as well. And so for a few of us who had our personal supplies or personal belongings in our luggage, myself, I had received my luggage. My sister and a few others did not. So by chance or by God, we had packed I had packed extra clothing, more than I needed, double. Some I planned to donate. And there were other people who also packed extra items and received their luggage. So in all, we were able to share things with some persons that hadn't had their luggage. And for me, like for instance, I brought clothing in size small. I am not a small woman, but by the blessings of God, I was able to share these items with someone who needed a small size clothing. So we didn't know what was going on, but indeed God did. And so as well, there were medical supplies that didn't make it, that were packed in the luggage as well, that we didn't have. like, stethoscopes, which are essential in the medical field. Medicines are the items that we use. And so by God, we were able to get some of these items as a team. So as I said, by God. So and the image on the side before was of our team. So in my experience, I'm American. All the pictures of America, as Bishop had mentioned, some of the movies that we had seen growing up, and our picture of Africa and what it was, and that's what kind of sticks in our mental psyche. But when we got there and we got over the ordeal of our baggage, and we began to travel. We had taken a plane and then we took a bus. So on the bus, you're traveling, you're seeing the sights and the sounds. And this is where the world of Africa for me began to come alive. Before boarding the bus, you smell the smell of burnt wood. It was the scent in the air all over because they use it for so many purposes, unlike in the United States. There were open air markets, and they were selling everything you can think of was being sold. You see women with beautiful colored clothing carrying all kinds of things on their heads, and babies tied to their backs at the same time. And the landscape was speckled with houses and buildings and huts. And you can see this as you were traveling along the road. These huts were not something we ever pictured would be in Africa. Not for myself, not in 2023 at least. And of course, there were the motorbikes and the trucks piled high with the goods and passengers, and occasionally we saw some with animals tied to the top of these large trucks as well, and it's in the picture that you see to the right, you see a woman and a little small child traveling on the back of a bike. And so in the States, of course, you think of all of these safety measures that are in place, you would never see something like this. So it was a sight. And I'm just going to move this a little bit. And so, just as this gentleman here is on the right is traveling with his cycle and all the equipment on it. But this is normal for this area. It was just an uncommon sight for me, an experience. Our accommodations were comfortable. We traveled our first place, as I said, to the Catholic Archdiocese Guest House in Tamale in the northern region of Ghana. And our accommodations for my sister and myself were comfortable. We had air conditioning and hot water, as it were. But this was not what everybody in our group had. Everybody had something a little different. And when we would meet for breakfast, we would hear, who had hot water or air conditioning. But we were gracious just the same. The persons and the group that served us, they were, just so kind and accommodating, and the food was wonderful. We had lots of, I think it was called Jofa rice, and I might have pronounced that wrong as well. A lot of rice, fish, and chicken, very tasty. We all enjoyed that. And throughout our stay, the accommodations that we had, they varied, but they were all very different and not as familiar to us as some of the places we would have stayed in the States. But I had realized it wasn't the comforts of the hotel that had added the quality to the facility. It was indeed the people who worked at each of these places that we stayed. They were just wonderful, wonderful. And so on our visit, we had gone first to the village, not the village, but we went to Tamale. And we had the opportunity to visit in the church. We had at the church a mini clinic and a Bible study the day before. And we had then gone the next day to have service at the Tamale Assembly of God Church. It was also called the Rock Church. And in the picture, where my cursor is down here, this is outside the church. And this indeed is a rock. This church was built on a rock. And it was a wonderful church. It was beautiful, and it was as functional as any church I've seen in the USA. We had, as I said, fellowship the second day that we were there, and we had the opportunity to participate in service. We were able, while they had tithes and offering, the women were dancing with tambourines, and it was just beautiful. And we were able to go up and fellowship with them. And my sister, most of the women were up and participating, and it was so inviting. And the word of God was spoken by our pastor, one of our pastors, Duffy. Was cut off a little bit in this image, that brought a wonderful word. And he brought the word through a translator. And I was really wondering how he was going to speak a message that was going to reach everyone in that sanctuary, compared to the type of messages that we hear in churches in the States. But I'm going to say God did it. He brought an awesome word. He brought the house down. And we were also moved by what he was able to do through God. So it was a wonderful experience, so much of it. So we had the medical clinics and the Bible study, and they were very successful. We had traveled to the villages by this time. We were going into Bandawiwa and Bandago. So every village was very welcoming, and they appreciated us, and they had dance and costumes, and not costumes, it was their traditional wear. And it was beautiful to see. I'm pointing out to the right, under that tent, the red tent, the women just began to dance and to sing the songs, and it was so welcoming. It was this was all before we had our mini clinic. So another picture here, we had a house full of, if you will, children that were participating in the Bible study. So there were many children in this house church, dirt floors, but there were so many more children outside looking in, just waiting. So the mini clinic was successful. We heard back from the team. My sister joined was with the medical team helping out. Myself, I had the privilege, if you will, the exciting privilege of teaching Bible study with a few other women on the team. We had children of all ages. Some children were schooled, other children were not schooled. In this country, if you're going to be educated, you have to pay for it, unlike what we have here in the States. And children came from different areas or villages to participate and to see what was going on. So we welcomed all that were there. Our Bible study was also done through interpreter. And as I said in my notes here, I might have had 100 to 150 children sometimes. Really, it's hard to know. They were just children all over the place, which was wonderful. But my years as a Sunday school teacher had really worked out for me, and I was able to feel very comfortable working with the children and the team that were doing the children's Bible study. And again, we were doing these it was in Nasaka, and then we had gone to, original Bible study was in Tamale. Then we went to Nasaka, where there was Bandawiwa and Bandagabo. And while we were working with the children, it was very interesting to see how you can try to understand one another. There were a few interpreters, but at occasions we didn't have interpreters, and so we had to try to understand each other, the children and myself and the other teachers understanding the children. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see how you could understand things together and move and get things done. By the end of many of the days we had where we were teaching Bible study, I was really honored and thrilled that the children at some point started calling me Mama, Mama, instead of some of the other teachers they were calling Madam. And it was endearing to be called Mama, because that's what they call the women, or the older women in the village were called Mama. So that was a privilege as well. So my sister Cicely Turpin She's part of a group, I believe it's called Women of Destiny, uh, perhaps is the name. And she and my cousins and some others, they sew women's feminine products into packages, sewn into packages and bags. And she had the opportunity, one of those bags happened to be the ones that did come with us. And she was able to share some of them with one of the villages here. You can see her in the picture. She's standing next to, if you can see my cursor, this is Grace, Sister Grace. Sister Grace was the village chief's sister. And she was very gracious to all of us, and she was able to translate what my sister was demonstrating. And my sister, she was saying that she didn't think she'd be able to speak in front of people because it's not something she had done before. But she did a great job. I was very proud to see what she was able to do. And for her and my family members who had been sewing these kits, very proud. I was saying that it would make even our parents proud, because on our end of the family, we come from a lineage of seamstress. And so all of that knowledge now boiling down to an opportunity to sew some important goods for women. Another side note that while we were there, it was very important for the pastor and the host of our trip, Pastor John, and the village chiefs wanted the men in the village to also be around. You can't really see them in the picture, but to be around when this demonstration and interpretation was going on for these feminine products, because in the area, it's a very male-dominated area, and usually these things are women's issues, but they wanted the men to hear what it is that the women needed, so that they could perform certain duties that they might not otherwise be able to do if they had been on their cycles and things like that. So that was just a side note. So in these few days, watching the women and the men and the children, you really come to realize that we're all different the way we live, but we all have the same basic needs. And that's the food, water, shelter, love, and the love of Jesus. And so this was demonstrated hopefully through us, and even what my sister was able to offer to these women. So now just going back to our, ancestry, so many of us know the story. But for me personally, there was a realization that happened. So after the mini clinics and the Bible studies in the villages, again, we had traveled back to Accra to visit the cultural center and Cape Coast, and to visit El Mima Castle, and then the Kukuma National Park. So going to El Mima Castle was extremely humbling and surreal. I'll just say for me, to imagine that so many people had passed through the castle here to become part of the slave trade. And some people were tortured. We had a tour guide that really filled us in on some things we weren't aware of. Talking about the number of people who had been tortured and abused while there, the number of people who died, and the people who just surrendered their will to become somebody else's property. And we all know this story. To those who survived, they endured the separation from family and everything they knew. One interesting thing I was unaware of was the number of people who died even before they made it to their destination in slavery. I never even realized the number of people who died here in the castle, the people who died in the travels. They were in the millions from what we were told. But it's very hard to imagine that these great people were my ancestors. And it's very powerful. We had an opportunity. I had a little picture down here. We traveled to, down in this picture, we traveled to Kukuma Canopy Walkway. So this was interesting because while we had our clinics, the mini clinics and the Bible study, we found that the people who were performing in these assignments in the villages, they were working in their strengths. When we went to the canopy, we found that there were people who really had to overcome their fear of the heights, because the canopies were really these swinging bridges that were attached to trees. And so, after a while, when we realized this, we really had to work together to go from one canopy to the next, because once we had started this trek through the canopies, you had to go all the way until you finished. So, and then when we finished these, then you had to come down this hill, and it was very muddy and slippery. And a few of us with back issues were, saying, "Oh my God, please be with me." But we made it. Team building, but all together, everyone working together the same way as working together with the clinics to help in the villages and with the Bible study. So moving along. So I wanted to say the choice to go to Ghana. So that was interesting, because the choice to go to Ghana really didn't seem like it was my choice. I feel like Ghana chose me to go there to see that land, or if you will, God chose that would be the place that I would go. And first I can say, I had pondered traveling for mission trips for many, many years. And I just never had the desire to travel abroad unless it was for the purpose of missions. I told people many times this, and I knew in my heart that I wanted to travel for missions in Africa. I dreamt about it, and I heard in my spirit to, keep myself mentally sound and physically sound as I was able, because I had the feeling I'd be going when I was a little bit older, as I am now. So, and I had watched many years, as many groups had, from our church, had traveled on missions trips, and they came and they went, and I was able to support them and pray for them, as I was able, but I was not able to go. So fast forward, when my sister in April 23 asked if I would be interested in traveling on a mission trip to Africa, I was excited and I was all in. I can practically say my bag was packed right then. But I didn't have a passport to start with. But I told my sister I was going. And I can say that's when the Lord began to assist, putting things together so that I could make this trip, because there were many things that had to happen in a very short amount of time. And by God's mercy, it happened. And there's very big testimonies that happened, but too long to talk about in this particular session. So, but just very grateful, and I was able to go. So I'm going to talk about the outcomes a little bit now of my going to Africa. So the visit, of course, was profound to me in many, many ways. And first and foremost, it reignited to a higher level the passion in me to serve and to help others that are in need. And I support missions locally here in the USA. But I always wanted to reach back to Africa to support her in some ways, but I didn't have a direct avenue to do that. And then you have people who'll say to you, well, there are plenty of places here in the US and people need in the US. Why do you want to support Africa? And all this is true, very true. But my heart had always circled back to what we call the motherland. And because of slavery in the US, I knew from a young girl, as fair as I am, I knew that I was of African descent. Biologically, I was related to somebody in Africa. And more recently, through ancestry, I could see in DNA that I had connections to Ghana. So I was ready. I was ready to go. And also, the people of Africa, when we think of them and we see things that go on from the States, we really sense that they are a forgotten people. And then you have to think, but these are my people. So, you really want to be able to do something. Just wanted to show real quick to the right here. This is myself and my sister Cicely. We are with the chief of one of the villages. I can't remember if it was Banda Wiwa or Banda Go. But he was, if you will, gracious enough to come out and to greet us. And what we were told that with the chiefs, they're very particular. They are so honored. They seldom come out and they mingle and things like that with the people. It was a whole big thing. You can't touch him and things like that. But he was very gracious, and we felt very welcomed by him. And also it was his sister Grace, the other picture that I had showed you. So stirring up my faith. I had to stir up my faith, and commit to my passion. So, this scripture here, everybody knows it. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. And that's Romans 8:28. We remember that. And we have to think about what it is that we do and how we can be a part. And having that opportunity to go on this trip helped to synchronize my thoughts. And my sister, Cicely, this really sticks with me. She had told me that she watched a gentleman instruct a young girl to pull water out of the well, the existing well, several times. And because the water was apparently bitter. And we had gone to this location. We were getting ready to dedicate a well, and this was in the village of Bagliga. And it's there that she had this observation. I was there, and I was able to look down that well, and this is prior to the ceremony we were having to dedicate the well. I looked down the original well, and it was just gray, murky water. And I was, we have all kinds of faces that we make at seeing such a thing. But this really stuck with me because for all my time as a child, and I think many on this call or Zoom could have never really even imagined whether the water that they drank or bathed in, whether it was clean or whether it was safe. So that seeing that water really, and what my sister told me really stuck with me, is very profound. And so God makes all things possible. And this is what we know. Knowing that the dedicated, the borehole that we had gone to, and this is Pastor John Izahaku standing right here from Zero Missions Africa. Knowing that the borehole that was dedicated, that we went to for clean water, was made possible by an elementary school student and her teacher, this whole thing made it possible for me too. And I knew that I wanted to do something. So when I returned home, I was blessed with some money, and I was able to provide with my family for a borehole that was put in the village of Dompofi. So I was grateful that I was able to do this. But even this one well, even though it serves many people, it felt really insignificant compared to what is needed. And so I continue to imagine children playing with excitement and clean, fresh water from new boreholes. So we have a problem here. And the problem is that in this area, putting in the boreholes, it costs $3,500 US. And that amount of money is still a significant amount of money for someone in the US if they wanted to support a well. But these wells can serve up to 200 people. They serve the village, and then they serve others around the village who may come in for water. And in the northern region of Ghana, where the Zero Mission team is mainly present, access to clean water is very limited. The further you move away from the major cities, the less resources, of course, and you won't find clean water except for near mosque. And I've been told, and these mosques, usually mosques are along the main roads. So, and I have been told that many people who want to use these wells would have to convert to Islam. And of course, for others, it's just too far. So a solution, one solution, and this is my solution. I began to think and pray about how I can do more for the children and the families who may be drinking the well water that's considered dirty or unhealthy. And there's many of the people who are doing that. And I had already been talking about opening a gallery, an art gallery for emerging artists. And I realized I could merge my idea for the art gallery with my passion to serve other people through selling art. And I would take part of the profits to fund wells under a program I'm instituting called Artful Wells Program in Ghana. But I want to talk just for a minute about the Zero Mission. This is on the underground group under the Zero Missions Africa organization with John Izahaku. So they're on the ground in Ghana, in the northern region of Ghana, and they are seeking the lost and the unreachable. They're identifying villages of whom to share the gospel. And these villages are remote, and often the mission teams have to travel great distances by motorbike and bring necessary travel gear, equipment, and translators. And Zero Missions Africa, they're winning souls, they teach discipleship, and they're planting churches in the northern region of Africa. To the right, you see all the folks there in those green shirts in one of the villages. These are the disciples who are there and converted, and they're working hard also to teach and maintain the churches in this area. So the difficulties that this missionary group here at Zera faces, they face rejection, retaliation for bringing the gospel, but they persevere, and they're often received by the chiefs in the villages and invited back to share the Jesus film. And I put in here just a side note. So the Jesus film, that equipment is very expensive. I heard that it is upwards around $6,000 for the Jesus film equipment that is used for those who have to travel. And it just so happens that the Jesus film package that was being brought to the village was in one of these pieces of luggage that we were missing. So I know the pastor with the mission group Helping Hands was very prayerful that we would receive that piece of luggage as well. So all of our luggage did arrive back on the 6th day of our journey. Nothing was missing. But I also like to say that it's Zero Missions Africa that is identifying the villages that they have brought the gospel to, and they are prioritizing the villages that will need those wells. So next, so the business that I have created or am in the process of creating, these are my logos here, the business is Redbird Art Gallery, or Redbird Gallery. So this is a startup business. It's a new business, and we're in the works putting it together. We're established as a business. Art sales is the primary, will be the primary item that we will be selling through online stores and resell events. Artful Wells is a program that falls under Redbird Gallery. And this will be an umbrella program under which the funding for which the collection of funding will be distributed. This program is not currently a 501c, but that is in the works as well. So right now, all the funding collected through Redbird Gallery under the Artful Wells program will go directly to the Zero Missions Africa and will be used strictly for boring wells. And we will be directing these resources, as I said, to Zero Missions, to Pastor John Izahaku. And he and his team will be overseeing the funds, and they'll be overseeing also the construction of each of these wells. And they'll keep us updated on wells that are put into the different areas. So the plan for Art for Wells. Again, through the Art for Wells program, we would take up to 25% of the sales profits to go fund Art for Wells program. The sale of art and other items will be through an online store, street fairs, exhibits, and fundraisers. So the original plan I had for my art gallery was to have a brick and mortar, a building to go into. But after talking to my husband, Trent, we decided that it would be better to start without a brick and mortar. Because that can keep the overhead down, as you see. And so because we don't have the brick and mortar, it keeps the overhead down, and that'll give more resources to put towards missions work for now. And we, again, we're working directly with Zero Missions Africa to transition the funds and to oversee that construction of the boreholes and identifying where the boreholes and wells will go. So just to tie up my presentation here, I am, for the next couple of years, this is the projected shows and events that we'll be participating in for 2024 and 2025. So we'll have an ongoing gallery, and the galleries, the ongoing store, forgive me, that is currently being set up, and that will be it'll have its own online URL. And then in addition, we'll have these outdoor events. Some of them are indoor, some of them are outdoor events, as you see here. We'll also have a fundraiser. This fundraiser will happen August 31st of this year. This will be our first fundraiser. And for the fundraiser, we'll have, silent auctions and things like that. And all of the proceeds from the fundraiser will go directly to the Art for Wells program. So we'll have that, and we have, again, some other things that will be happening in 2025. So some of these things we may have additional places that we're able to go to in between, but these are just the main ones. And again, fundraisers that will be happening next year. So that's this is this is what is projected for this year, next year. And right now, as I said, we were able to put one well in Dompofi. We have a significant amount of funding ready for the next well. And so collectively, the hope is that through Bread Art Gallery and Art for Wells program, we'll be able to collectively bring funding together so that we can put more wells in the ground to help more folks in Ghana, Africa. And that's where we'll primarily, for now, be focused, in Ghana, West Africa. So with that, I close my presentation, and I'm open to questions. But I just wanted to say, currently, if anyone is interested in donating, I have my number on the screen here, and I have my email. So I would hope that please write it down, take a picture, please tell other people about this program that's opening up, take a snapshot, a picture of this information here, because I'm really hoping and believing that we'll be able to move mightily in God's name to really bring hope, the love of God, and his presence to many more people. And I thank you. And so I will unshare my screen.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much. We have seen, heard, and this wonderful presentation